Hey, what's going on, guys? High Noon Gaming here, and welcome back! I'm here to bring you a review of SHAZAM, a movie I just checked out that came out this weekend. And boy, I gotta tell you, this movie is a third banger for what to expect out of the DC universe. I gotta tell you, this is the third movie in a row that's coming from DC that has been straight fire. I know Wonder Woman came out, and that was fire. Aquaman came out, that movie was definitely fire. And we all know how we felt about Aquaman prior to Justice League and his solo film. We're like, Aquaman, you know, the man that's just in water, what can he do? We didn't really expect what we got. And when they cast Jason Momoa and we got to see him perform in a solo act, it was incredible. One of the best DC, if not the best DC movie that's out right now. So when SHAZAM came out, the expectations were already high. Everyone out there, including myself, was wondering, alright, SHAZAM, he's not a new character. He's been around just as long as all the others, including Superman. But he's not as popular as the other characters. So, just a brief synopsis of who he is. It's just a 14-year-old orphan, Billy Batson. He's in a foster home, and one day he comes across a wizard who grants him the powers of SHAZAM. And whenever he says the champion's name, he turns into this big superhero that's pretty much a mixture of all the great gods like Zeus, the strength of Zeus, the wisdom of Solomon, That's who SHAZAM is as a character. And they have a good job at describing that character within the movie. So, Billy Batson as a character overall, he pulls it off. I gotta admit, the actor, he did a good job. And we all know that child actors kind of take flack for this type of acting because overall later in time they turn to not be all that, or sometimes might be annoying compared to their adult counterpart. But he pulls it off. The supporting actor, he pulls it off, and he was already a good actor from the movie It that came out in 2017. He did a great performance there, and now to see him again 2 years later, he's 2 years older, got a little bit more experience under his belt. He really pulls it off as a good supporting actor for the role. But as the third solo movie post Justice League universe, it's way beyond expectations. Zachary Levi is the man who plays as the hero SHAZAM, and he fully embodies the state of a man-child. He's a big grown man, superhero, super speed, flight, strength, lightning powers, all that. But in his head, he is still that 14-year-old boy. And that is what totally hits the mark with the movie. Because I was skeptic, I'm not going to lie. I was skeptic about, his performance and if he could pull off, I'm really a child inside, or a teenager, inside of a man's body. So he pulls it off, and he literally embodies that mindset of when you were in middle school or early high school and you and your friends are outside at each other's house or outside the playground or at the bus stop or whatever, and you're conversating and you're saying, hey, if you could have superpowers, what would you do? What would you be like? And you're like, oh man, if I had powers, I would do this and this. They even have that conversation in the movie, which is not really a spoiler. It's just a set piece of dialogue to where, hey, what would you rather have, flight or invisibility? And they're just going back and forth to their choice and why they picked that, and why would that choice make them a hero or a villain. Because one of the characters says, if you want invisibility, that's more of a villain type mindset. Because if you could turn invisible and you were 14, What would you do with that power? Where would you go if you could be invisible? You already know the answer to that. I don't have to explain it. But they basically have that conversation. And then he's like, well, of course you're going to choose flight because everybody chooses flight. So that's what gets the movie going. And that chemistry between the two is great. The scene that was in the trailer with the men shooting him, and you got bullet immunity, and they're freaking out, and all that is literally how I would react with a friend of mine if I had superpowers and I was running around doing things in a Superman-like nature. And I gotta tell you, he pulls it off. He really does. Like, I cannot wait to see how he interacts with the other existing DC characters like Aquaman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, if that's possible in the near future. Because he really pulls it off, and he's really set in stone into his own world. There's no cross, there's no universe building, there's none of that. And it's just amazing because they can focus on one story, one character, and pull it off. And that is something that I greatly appreciate, because DC has been off track with trying to connect everything and pull the Marvel card, and it hasn't been working in the past, and they've learned from that. And now they're deciding to focus on just one video, one movie, one character at a time. And that's how it should be done before they decide to make another crossover movie. So other than that, another thing that worked that I didn't think would was the family aspect of the movie. He's in a foster home, so there's like 6 or 7 other foster kids within the home plus the 2 foster parents. I didn't think they were going to get as much screen time as I thought. But they get quite good amount of screen time. And one of the foster parents, he also plays on The Walking Dead, and I really like his chemistry, and that's great. So I really appreciate how they made each foster kid have a role in the movie. They each had their own little story arc that helps build the character development of Billy Batson in his search for himself, really, with getting used to a foster home, and the term family really means something to him when it comes to the whole foster kid situation and the parents. And I really like how they just make it work. But one thing that kind of doesn't work is the villain. Hate to admit it, but DC is falling into the same category as Marvel when it comes to these villains. Very forgetful or very underwhelming. The villain has his own motive, but it's not as deep as someone like Thanos that's took 10 years to develop, or Loki that had multi-movies to explain his character and his motivations. This guy is a known character in the comics, Dr. Sivana, but his motive is kind of a revenge tale. More of a, I was a little guy and people stepped on me, and now I got power and I seek revenge. That's it. That's the only motivation he has. No domination, no changing the world. He wasn't a General Zod in terms of that motive, and he wasn't a Thanos in terms of Marvel's motive with a very strong villain. But in terms of, we need someone who could bring Billy Batson out of his comfort zone and actually challenge him and turn him into a hero, he pulls off. Because when he shows up, he's like the reality check for Billy Batson as Shazam. Because Shazam's been walking around thinking he's the only guy like this and everything's all gravy, I'm gonna do cool kid stuff. But the villain shows up and shows him that this is a serious world out here and lives could be at stake. So you need to move with urgency. Outside of that, the fight scenes between the two were lackluster a little bit. It was cool, but it wasn't on the scale of Man of Steel when it comes to fighting, like the fight between Superman and General Zod. It was a lot more lower scale, but it had its impact with how it should be for an origin movie. So the villain, he's cool. He gets the job done basically. He's not dope, but he gets it done. So I would like to say the ending and third act of the movie was very surprising. I did not think they would have done this for the first movie. You know, without spoilers, I'm not going to explain what happens, but it's definitely a very crazy radical turn that I didn't think the DCEU would pull. But, you know, as Batman says, you know, we'll have a table, 6 chairs, but room for more. You know, and I'll just leave it at that. And I really like what they did with the movie, and it's definitely worth going to see if you're into comic book movies and DC and the direction that they're going as. And it was fun. The movie is fun. I know it had a kiddie vibe to it because it's like, oh, he's a kid, that's a superhero. But the way they written the character and the way Zachary Levi, excuse me, pulls it off, you don't even notice. And you're just thinking about comparing yourself to Billy Batson's character the whole time of the movie, and you're just enjoying, like, oh man, this is a good time, I'm loving this is fun. You know, I would love to get superpowers, and this is exactly what I would do if I was looking into the role of a good guy. But in terms of the overall aspect, in terms of score, out of 10, I'll give it about an 8. An 8 because of the fact that it has all the elements of a successful DC movie, and the fact that it's the third movie in a row that's pulled it off with the solo gig, and that gives hope for future DCEU films. And with that, I really appreciate, because Man of Steel was great. That's a debatable topic with people, but it really was a good movie. Wonder Woman was good. Aquaman was good. And now Shazam can be added within that category. But the reason why I give it an 8 is mostly because of the villain. You know, he wasn't strong enough. They didn't really explain his motives as good. He was just somebody to beat up on. And also, the action wasn't as cinematic. But with that, I'm glad you guys came to view my Shazam review. I hope you guys go check it out. It's definitely worth the watch. Matinee, weekend, whatever. Just make sure to go check it out, guys, because it really is worth the watch. And with that, this is High Noon Gaming. This is my Shazam review, and I appreciate the view, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Check you guys out later. Peace.